When I saw for the first time this woman, she had a big smile in her face. She really won my sympathy at that moment. But when we started to talk, she really won my heart. You'll see how sensitive, how nice this woman is. She is Mrs. Rosie Phillips Davis. She's the actual president of the APA in the United States, the American Psychological Association. Let's hear about you, Mrs. Rosie.
And what would you like to hear, Wendy?
Yeah.
First, when I met you, I felt the same way.
Really?
You were so kind
Oh.
and generous with your time for me and my husband, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. It was a pleasure for me.
Yes.
Oh, I want to know about your origin,
Okay.
how you were raised.
Yes.
Why did you decide to study psychology? And what makes you so resilient?
Okay. So I actually was born in Mississippi in the United States. My father was a sharecropper, and you may have seen stories about black people, African Americans, working on cotton plantations.
Yes.
And so my parents were sharecroppers. They didn't make much money, and they lived in that same environment where you made money and you almost had to pay it all back to the owners by the time the harvest season came around. But when I was 4, my parents moved to Memphis, Tennessee. And there, my father got a job as a garbage man, a sanitation worker. Yes. By then, when we moved to Memphis, my father had 2 sons, my mother had 2 daughters when they married. I'm their first child. And then they had 8 more.
Wow!
Oh yes, lots of us. And on a garbage man's salary, so we were very, very poor. When we were children, sometimes we would even do things like go to the field to pick cotton. And they would pay $3 for 100 pounds of cotton. I could never, as a little kid, pick 100 pounds worth of cotton, so I never made any money. And in the summer, you would have to chop the cotton, get rid of the weeds, and the sun was so hot, I wasn't any good at that either.
Okay.
I was good at reading, though.
Oh, really?
I liked to read, and so I would read books all the time. And I could read before I went to school as a first grader.
Yeah.
And so people indulged me in reading and let me read books. And it fueled my imagination about what could be. Because as a poor little kid, one hardly ever gets out of the neighborhood. And so I didn't see a lot. I didn't know about jobs. I knew about teaching. I knew about being a secretary. I knew about cleaning houses for people.
So when did you decide to study psychology?
So even as a little girl, people liked to talk to me. But my fantasy was to be a dancer.
A dancer?
A dancer.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. But I didn't know anything about how to become a dancer, nor did my parents know anything about it. And so my first love was put to the side because we never knew anything about that. But people liked to come and talk with me. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll be a psychiatrist. I don't know how I learned the word psychiatrist. But then I saw some people when I was about 15 who had severe mental illness, and I didn't understand it, and it frightened me. And so I thought maybe I'll be a high school guidance counselor instead.
Okay.
And so when I went to college, though, the professor there, the subject matter that I loved was actually history.
Okay.
So I thought I might major in history because I didn't think about what subject matter one needed to study to become a guidance counselor.
Okay.
And I just loved history. my history teacher, or one of the teachers, he wasn't my history teacher, but my advisor said, history teachers are a dime a dozen. You will never get a job. I said, well, what am I going to do? He said, what do you like to do? I said, I'd like to help people. He said, well, major in sociology. And so I said, okay. So I majored in sociology, and I told him, but I don't like sociology courses. He said, it'll get better when you're in your upper division classes.
Oh, that's nice.
It did not get better. I did well.
But you didn't like it.
I didn't like it. It did not call to me. It did not speak to me. And so when I graduated from college, I went to work as a manager for the telephone company. That's what it was back in those days, the telephone company. And I had a group of workers, several of whom, a lady who was at that time to someone who was 22 seemed very old. She was probably 55. And I was talking to her about why she was being late and missing work. And she started to cry right at my desk in front of all these people. And I'm thinking, I have no idea what to do with this woman. I need to learn something. And so I went back to graduate school to learn about counseling. And while in counseling, a man who was over the admissions committee in counseling psychology suggested to me that I would be a good psychologist. So he encouraged me to study psychology, and I did. And honestly, I did it just because I'd finished my master's degree and I didn't want to go to work. And so I said, well, I'll stay in school. And before I knew it, I had taken all of my classes. And I said, I guess I'm going to be a psychologist. But I love being a psychologist.
You love it?
I love it, yes.
Even though you can be a dancer. You can learn here in the Dominican Republic.
Yes, but I could go out dancing. And so I would dance a lot. Even when I met my husband, I would go out dancing and he'd be ready to go home and I'd not go home, I'd dance. So I couldn't be a professional dancer, but I could have fun dancing.
Yeah,
but
that's
in
nice.
Psychology, I found even more meaning and purpose.
Yeah, to help people, so you like to help people.
I really do. I love to see people develop and soar. I like to see people fly.
Oh, really?
I do.
So now you are in the APA.
Yes.
It's the highest association in the United States that has more than 100,000 psychologists.
Yes.
How do you think you can help the science, the people being there?
I think that what I bring, I have passion about helping people to solve real problems, helping to reduce stigma about mental health, because all around the world, in the United States, but all around the world, people have shame about having a mental illness. And so they try to hide it. We don't pay enough money, we don't fund it well. And so I can speak to that and talk to people about reducing stigma about mental illness. You see, there is no difference in physical illness and mental illness, and it's okay for us to go to the doctor for a physical checkup. It needs to be okay for us to go get a mental checkup.
Yes.
My brain tells me if I cut my finger and I'm hurting. My brain tells me if I'm hurting when I'm depressed. We need to understand that we are just one human being. And so I want people to know that. So part of what I try to do is help people to understand the science of psychology. The science of psychology. People don't understand that it's a science. So one of the things I've done as president of the American Psychological Association is a video contest.
Okay.
And in the video contest, any psychologist or student could make a 2-minute video explaining a psychological concept in a way that the public could understand it. And then they upload those videos to YouTube, and we have a panel of experts review them and pick and for accuracy, and then we will upload some of those to the APA website. Then I have a panel of experts that will pick 10 to get prizes.
Oh, that's really
Yes,
nice.
yes. It's too bad your audience didn't know about that already, because they would have been eligible to win $1,000 for their video.
Really?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
you should have told us.
Well, it was on the website, but nobody said, well, you should write to people in the Dominican Republic.
To Carlos.
To Carlos. I wish I had known to do that. Yeah. And so we'll do that. But the point is, so that people understand better what psychology is. And so I hope that that helps and that those videos will help.
Okay. Do you think it has been improving in the United States?
I think it has been. It has been, but still, even in the United States, about half the people who need to see a psychologist or who are struggling with mental illness don't get access. Now, we have improved in that when we go to the doctor now, it's usual to ask questions about depression, anxiety.
Okay.
That's normal. What we haven't done yet is make it so standard that people really push us to do it. So I still may not tell the truth when I go, because I don't know what the question means. If I say I've been a little depressed, do they think I need some medication? I would like it to be clearer what the questions mean and more okay for people to answer those questions honestly. But we have moved, we've improved.
Yes, I think so. You know, in the series that's put on TV, in almost every series, there's a psychologist there to attend some of the problems of the community. So I think
it's better. It's much better, actually. It's much better. And there are more people who are in the field, and it's also expanded to include counseling as well as psychology. So there are more people who are delivering services than there used to be. And so I think it's more accepted. And a lot of times people, years ago when I would say I was a psychologist, they say, are you reading my mind? I rarely get that question anymore. So people know we're not reading minds. So it's a lot better. And people are using a lot more psychological principles everywhere. And the example I like to use for my young nieces and nephews when they are playing with their telephones, I say those are psychological principles that keep you using that phone all the time. It's an intermittent variable reinforcement schedule, so that you think something good is going to be on it. People just use it to make a lot of money. And so there are a lot of psychological principles. A lot more colleges of business are hiring psychologists because companies want to use the skills that psychologists bring.
Yeah, and you know, companies are hiring not just the psychology to get the right people, but to counsel the people that they have in the companies.
Yes, exactly.
So now it's getting...
Yes. People see that it will impact their bottom line, that they will make more money.
If you're happier.
If you're happier, if you know your job, and so they're using psychologists to help more with that. So people are beginning to know there are far more things to do with psychology other than just seeing a patient, which is nothing wrong with. I like seeing clients. I like seeing patients. The other thing that's happening is that in the medical field, we're doing more integrated health care. So really, there are a lot of people sometimes now who are using psychologists to see if someone is ready for a particular treatment. And so they're using them. So psychologists now are often right in the hospital with the medical doctors. And that's a good sign. That's very good. Yes.
Okay. So how has it been your experience here in the Dominican Republic? You have been here for 1 day and a half.
Yes. And from the moment I got here, people are very kind. Now, I must say that you all take more pictures than anyone.
I saw you yesterday, and they took you like 1,000,000 pictures.
Oh, wow. Yes, everyone wants to take a picture. My only requirement is that they post it on social media. And why would I do that? I want people to know about psychology.
Okay.
I want them to see a real person out in the world saying, yes, I'm a psychologist, and that's a good thing. So I want them to post it everywhere they can. The more they post it, the more people know something about psychology.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you see APA in the future?
We are in the midst of, we just adopted a new strategic plan in the American Psychological Association. And what that plan will help us, we plan to transform the organization and also impact the profession. We're going to be more outward facing, form more partnerships with more companies, peoples, governments, foundations, communities in which we serve, because it's so important that we are out there making a significant impact on real world problems. And so we need to be out there. In our country and around the world now, for example, we're a lot more divisive. There's a lot more hate and fear. Psychologists know how to help with that. We need to be out in the world helping with that. We need to help people learn how to reduce their fear. So even when we're having elections, that you vote for a candidate that you know about, not vote for someone because you're afraid of someone else. So we need to help with things like that. We have issues of climate change. People need to know how to sort through information to get real information so that they can make good decisions. We need to partner with people around the world to help us deal with things like poverty.
Yeah.
We need to figure out, how do we help people to be like the Dominicans in Santo Domingo, happy people? How do we bring about change to improve people's lives? We can't do that being internally focused. We must focus with organizations outside of us.
Oh, we would like to work with the APA as a country.
And so we have begun to be more global in the way that we work. And so we form memorandums of understanding with various countries. And that's so that we can learn from them, they can learn from us. So for example, one of the things that we have to figure out in the United States, we've been so focused on getting a doctorate for psychology, but in other countries, they start students as undergrads studying psychology, and then they get a master's to be a clinical psychologist. So that's a great learning experience for us to see how is it that we do that differently than the way we do it in the United States. Yeah.
Okay.
Or you might want to know, why is it that we want people to stay in school so long and get a doctorate? There's probably something very useful about that too. So it's the mutual exchange that we must do. And to learn a lot more about cultural differences.
Yes.
I mean, understanding people is the hallmark of psychology, and people are different. So if I can learn more about what happens in Santo Domingo, in the Dominican Republic, it will help me with all people in the United States.
To understand people.
Yes,
I know.
absolutely.
You have been in a Congress for the past 2 days.
Yes.
And what is your impression of the Congress? How had been your experience here?
My experience at the Congress has been tremendous because, number one, I'm impressed with how many students are here.
Yes.
I am very impressed with that, and they are so eager and enthusiastic. The other thing is that the subject matter that is covered, we've covered things on disabilities, motivation, how to be a leader, measurement. That is exciting for me to see the breadth of the topics covered. And then I was really pleased with the awards that APA and Fundesic gave together to those outstanding students for their empirical research thesis. Those were great, and I love seeing that. And I have to give a nod to the way Carlos has been with me. He's introduced you to me and to Mario, who's been a great interpreter for me. So I feel I could listen. And we went to a session today together that was just excellent. And she even let me read some Spanish.
Oh, really?
Yes. So people have been warm and gracious and very educational.
Oh, I hope you come back soon.
Oh, thank you.
When you get out of the APA,
Yes.
You have to come here, but a week, for at least a week.
For a week and come for
Yes.
fun. My term ends, the APA presidency is 1 year. I started
Okay.
January 1st. I
Okay.
end at 11:59 p.m. December 31st.
So next year you'll be able to come here and to take dancing classes.
Yes, yes.
So
yes,
this is a
yes.
promise.
Okay,
Well,
we'll
thank
do
you,
that.
thank you to be here for us in the Dominican Republic. It was an honor to have you here, and by the quantity of pictures that the people took of you, you noticed.
Yes,
that,
yes, yes, yes. And gracias. People have been so kind to me.
Okay, well, hope you come back soon.
Okay.